The humans screamed with agony as the Yadarian pulse weapons burned through their bodies, but they kept advancing, their flesh sealing closed even as the alien beams sliced into them again and again. Philip Gordon pushed through the panicked shouting of the Galactic Council chamber, barely registering the mix of terror and awe on the alien faces around him. All eyes turned to Orion, the Yadarian leader, as he called for silence. "Our worst fears have been realized," Orion said gravely. "Yadarian extremists have stolen our most dangerous weapons, weapons that can destroy planets, and they plan to use them to seize control of the galaxy." Murmurs of horror filled the room, tentacles and claws twitching in agitation. Philip felt a chill run through him, despite the climate-controlled environment. "These weapons are protected by an energy field at the terrorists' base," Orion continued. "But this field is deadly to all known species, except, perhaps, for humans." Hundreds of eyes swiveled to Philip, the lone human in a room of extraterrestrials. He straightened, meeting their speculative gazes. Humanity was the newest species on the galactic stage, their toughness and unpredictability still largely untested. "Commander Gordon," Orion said, "you are our only hope of stopping this catastrophe. Your unique biology may allow you to pass through the field and disable the weapons." Shouted objections erupted from the council members. How could they trust the fate of trillions to an unproven race? But Orion overrode them, his voice cracking with desperation. "We have no choice. If we do not act, the Yadarian rebels will destroy us all. Commander, will you accept this mission?" Philip breathed deeply, the weight of countless lives settling onto his shoulders. He thought of Earth, still innocent of the dangers that prowled between the stars. If he failed, humanity's homeworld could burn. "I'll do it," he said. "I'll take the best team you can give me, and I'll get this done for all our sakes." Orion sagged with relief, his grateful nod conveying the unspoken hope of a dozen species. Around the room, doubt and fear warred with the first fragile stirrings of faith. Philip turned on his heel and strode from the chamber, a plan already taking shape in his mind. The shocked cries of the injured humans echoed in his ears, driving him forward. Humanity would meet this challenge head-on as they always had, and the aliens would learn just how powerful human determination could be. The sleek human stealth ship sliced through the void, its adaptive hull blending seamlessly into the starscape. Inside, Philip Gordon gripped the armrests of the command chair, his eyes locked on the viewscreen. The rogue Yadarian base loomed ahead, a stark metal construct against the blackness of space. "All systems nominal," reported the pilot, her fingers dancing across the controls. "Approaching target in 3, 2, 1. Suddenly alarms blared through the ship. A squadron of Yadarian fighters materialized from behind a nearby moon, their plasma cannons already glowing with deadly energy. "Evasive maneuvers," Philip barked, bracing himself as the ship jinked and rolled. The Yadarians opened fire, the space around them erupting into a maelstrom of searing light. But to everyone's amazement, the plasma blasts splashed harmlessly against the human ship's hull, dissipating like water on sand. Philip stared at the readouts in disbelief, hardly daring to breathe. "The hull," the pilot whispered, her eyes wide. "It's absorbing the plasma just like human skin," Philip finished, a grin spreading across his face. He leaned forward, a new plan forming in his mind. "Fly straight at them. Don't deviate." The pilot hesitated for only a moment before nodding, her jaw set. The human ship surged forward, barreling directly towards the Yadarian formation. The enemy fighters scattered like startled birds, their shots going wide as they desperately tried to evade the oncoming juggernaut. Philip's team seized the advantage, their own weapons lancing out with precise, devastating effect. One by one, the Yadarian ships tumbled away, their engines disabled by the humans' surgical strikes. Philip felt a fierce rush of exhilaration as the last fighter spun off into the void, trailing smoke and debris. For once, their biology was an asset, not a liability. The very thing that made them unique, that set them apart from the other races of the galaxy, was now their greatest strength. The human ship sliced through the wreckage of the Yadarian squadron, its course unwavering. Ahead, the rogue base rapidly grew larger, its angular surface bristling with weapons emplacements. Philip rose from his chair as the ship slipped into the base's hangar, the deck shuddering beneath his feet. He checked his weapon, the weight familiar and reassuring in his hands. "Move out," he ordered, his voice steady. "Stay alert and stay together. We don't know what we're walking into." The team disembarked, falling into formation with the ease of long practice. They advanced cautiously, scanning the shadows of the hangar for any sign of movement. Without warning, plasma fire erupted from the darkness, the searing bolts crisscrossing the space around them. Philip dove for cover, his heart pounding in his ears. But the plasma splashed harmlessly against their armor, the advanced material absorbing the energy just as the ship's hull had. The Yadirians, emerging from their hiding spots with weapons raised, faltered in shock. Philip and his team returned fire, their shots punching through the Yadirians' defenses as if they were made of paper. Alien soldiers crumpled to the deck, their weapons clattering from suddenly nerveless fingers. As the smoke cleared, Philip stepped forward, his rifle trained on the surviving Yadirians. He could see the fear and disbelief in their eyes, the dawning realization that they were facing an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. "Surrender!" Philip demanded, his voice ringing through the sudden silence. "It's over." But the Yadirians turned and fled, disappearing into the twisting corridors of the base. Philip cursed under his breath, knowing that every second counted. He had to reach those weapons before the Yadirians regrouped, before they had a chance to mount a more coordinated defense. The fate of countless lives hung in the balance. Signaling to his team, Philip plunged into the maze of the base, his senses heightened and his weapon at the ready. As they navigated the dimly lit passages, a growing sense of certainty settled over him. Their immunity to the Yadirians' weapons was more than just a tactical advantage. It was a sign, a message to the rest of the galaxy. Humanity was no longer the weak, unpredictable newcomer, fumbling their way among the stars. They were a force to be reckoned with, a species with the strength and tenacity to face any challenge head-on. And Philip would make sure that the galaxy would never forget it. As Philip raced through the corridors of the Yadirian compound, his team fanned out behind him, their weapons at the ready. The occasional plasma bolt sizzled past them, but their immunity to the alien weapons allowed them to press forward with relentless determination. Suddenly they burst into a massive chamber, its walls lined with pulsing energy conduits. In the center of the room stood a towering figure, clad in heavy armor and wielding a crackling energy hammer. The Yadirian warrior fixed Philip with a baleful glare, his voice booming through the chamber. "Human, you dare to invade our stronghold? I, Hrathgar, champion of the Yadirian people, will not allow you to pass. Face me in single combat if you have the courage." Philip stepped forward, his helmet retracting to reveal his face. "I accept your challenge, Hrathgar, but know this. I fight not for glory, but for the fate of the galaxy itself." The Yadirian let out a bellowing laugh. "Pretty words, human. Let us see if your strength matches your rhetoric." With a roar, Hrathgar charged, his hammer swinging in a brutal arc. Philip ducked beneath the blow, feeling the crackle of energy as the weapon passed over his head. He retaliated with a flurry of punches, his gauntlets glowing with power as they slammed into the Yadirian's armor. The two warriors traded blows, circling each other in a deadly dance. Hrathgar's immense strength allowed him to wield his hammer with devastating force, but Philip's agility and immunity to the weapon's energy gave him a crucial edge. As the battle raged on, Philip could feel himself tiring. Hrathgar seemed to be an inexhaustible force, his blows raining down with relentless fury. In a desperate gambit, Philip lunged forward, grappling with the Yadirian in an attempt to wrestle the hammer from his grip. Hrathgar laughed, his breath hot against Philip's face. "Foolish human, you cannot hope to match my strength." The Yadirian brought his hammer down in a crushing blow, the weapon slamming into Philip's helmet with a blinding flash. But instead of the expected agony, Philip felt only a slight jolt, the energy dissipating harmlessly across his armor. Realization dawned on him. Even the Yadirian's mightiest weapon could not harm him. With a surge of renewed determination, Philip pressed his attack, his fists pummeling the Yadirian's armor with relentless force. Hrothgar staggered back, his hammer falling from his grip as he slumped to his knees. Philip stood over him, his chest heaving with exertion. "It's over, Hrothgar. Tell me where the stolen weapons are, and I'll spare your life." The Yadirian looked up at him, his eyes filled with a mix of hatred and grudging respect. "You have bested me, human. The weapons are in the central hangar being prepared for transport, but you are too late. By the time you reach them, they will be beyond your grasp." Philip turned to his team, his voice urgent. "To the hangar now, we can't let those weapons leave this base." They raced through the corridors, following the signs towards the heart of the compound. As they burst into the hangar, they were greeted by a sight that made Philip's blood run cold. A massive Yadirian transport ship was already powering up, its engines thrumming with energy. Through the shimmering force field that surrounded the vessel, Philip could see the stolen weapons being loaded into its hold. "Take out that ship," he barked, his team opening fire with everything they had. But the transport's shields held firm, the weapons' fire splashing harmlessly against the flickering barrier. Philip's mind raced, desperately searching for a solution. Suddenly, a wild idea formed in his mind. If he could pass through the base's energy field unharmed, perhaps he could do the same with the ship's shields. Without hesitation, he sprinted towards the transport, ignoring the cries of his team. As the ship lifted off, its engines roaring, Philip leaped with all his strength, his fingers scrabbling for purchase on the vessel's hull. The wind whipped at him as the ship accelerated, the ground falling away beneath him. Hand over hand, Philip clawed his way up the hull, his eyes fixed on the cockpit above. His team could only watch in awe as their leader disappeared into the clouds, a lone human clinging to the side of a Yadirian transport ship. They knew that the fate of the galaxy now rested on Philip's shoulders, and they could only pray that his audacity would be enough to carry the day. Philip hauled himself into the Yadirian transport's cockpit, his heart pounding. As he stumbled to his feet, a hulking figure emerged from the shadows, Zorik, the rogue Yadirian leader. Zorik's scarred face twisted into a sneer. "Impressive, human, but your luck ends here." Zorik lunged, his fists hammering into Philip's armor. Philip reeled back, then retaliated with a flurry of blows. They grappled across the cockpit, smashing into control panels and bulkheads. Zorik was strong, his technique flawless, but Philip's enhanced biology allowed him to absorb the crushing hits. Philip hammered his fist into Zorik's jaw, sending the Yadirian staggering. As they fought, Philip's eyes caught a flicker of green light. A strange device was mounted on the control panel, pulsing ominously. Zorik followed his gaze and laughed. "Notice that, did you? A little surprise for you and your friends. One pulse from this and you'll be helpless." Philip's blood ran cold. He couldn't let Zorik activate that device. With a roar, he redoubled his assault, driving Zorik back with a relentless barrage of strikes. Their battle spilled out of the cockpit and into the cargo bay. Philip and Zorik weaved between the crates of stolen weapons, exchanging brutal blows. Philip's armor deflected the worst of Zorik's attacks, but he could feel himself tiring. Suddenly, a shimmering force field sprang up, cutting Philip off from Zorik. The Yadirian let out a triumphant bellow. "Stay put, human. I'll deal with you once I've activated the weapon." Zorik raced back towards the cockpit. Philip pounded against the force field, but it held firm. Desperation rising, his gaze fell on the stolen weapons surrounding him. An idea sparked in his mind. He was immune to Yadirian technology. Maybe he could use that to his advantage. Philip tore open one of the weapon crates and began frantically rewiring the circuitry. In the cockpit, Zorik reached for the activation switch of the prototype weapon. His finger hovered over the button, savoring the moment of impending victory. The cockpit door exploded inward. Zorik whirled, shock registering on his face as Philip charged in, a modified Yadirian rifle in his hands. Philip pulled the trigger, and a pulse of blue energy engulfed Zorik. The Yadirian leader crumpled, unconscious, before he hit the deck. Philip sagged against the bulkhead, his strength drained. Slowly he made his way to the control panel and input the coordinates for the Galactic Council headquarters. As the ship lurched into motion, Philip collapsed into the pilot's chair. He had stopped Zorik and secured the stolen weapons, but he knew this was just the beginning. The galaxy was a dangerous place, and humanity would face many more challenges in the days to come. But for now he allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. Humanity had proven itself once again, thanks to their unique abilities. As the ship hurtled through the stars, Philip couldn't help but wonder what other surprises the cosmos had in store for his species. Philip guided the Yadirian transport through the swirling nebulae, his mind still reeling from the battle with Zorik. The cockpit hummed with the steady pulse of the engines, a soothing counterpoint to the adrenaline still surging through his veins. Suddenly the comm crackled to life. "Commander Gordon, this is Orion. Do you read me?" Philip tapped the receiver. "I read you, Counselor. Zorik is neutralized and the stolen weapons are secure. Mission accomplished." There was a pause, filled with a strange static. When Orion spoke again, his voice was strained. "Well done, Commander, but I'm afraid we have a new problem." A chill ran down Philip's spine. "What kind of problem?" "During your mission, a faction within the Council began to argue for the extermination of humanity." Orion's words were heavy with regret. "They fear your immunity to our weapons makes you too dangerous. I fought against them, but their influence grows by the minute." Philip's grip tightened on the controls, his knuckles white. The implications of Orion's words crashed over him like a tidal wave. In trying to save the galaxy, had he doomed his own species? As the transport descended towards the Council headquarters, Philip saw not the cheering crowds he'd expected, but a sea of armed soldiers. Their weapons were trained on his ship, their stances tense and hostile. The hangar doors opened, and Philip felt a sense of dread settle in his stomach as he guided the ship to a landing. The engines had barely powered down when a squad of soldiers swarmed the transport, their rifles leveled at the cockpit. Philip raised his hands, his heart pounding. The soldiers parted and a tall, imposing figure strode forward. The Zorgian's scales glinted in the harsh light, his eyes cold and calculating. "Commander Gordon," he said, his voice dripping with disdain, "I am Krelax, head of the Council's security forces. By order of the Council, you and your team are to be placed under immediate quarantine." Philip's eyes darted to Orion, who stood behind Krelax, his face etched with worry. "Counselor, what is the meaning of this?" Orion stepped forward, his hands spread in a placating gesture. "Commander, please, we just need to understand the extent of your abilities. It's for the safety of the galaxy." Krelax cut him off with a sharp gesture. "The safety of the galaxy demands that we take action now. These humans cannot be allowed to roam free, not with the power they wield." Philip's team emerged from the transport, their faces a mix of confusion and anger, as the soldiers surrounded them. Philip felt a surge of protective fury. These were his people, his responsibility. As the soldiers herded them towards a waiting shuttle, Philip caught a glimpse of the fear in his team's eyes. Fear and a growing sense of betrayal. The shuttle carried them to a secret facility, deep in the heart of the Council's most secure sector. Philip and his team were subjected to a barrage of tests, each more invasive than the last. Blood samples, tissue biopsies, full-body scans. Krelax's scientists probed every aspect of their biology, searching for the key to their immunity. Through it all, Philip seethed with a growing sense of injustice. They had risked everything to save the galaxy, and this was their reward? To be treated like lab rats, their freedom stripped away in the name of fear. As he lay strapped to an examination table, watching yet another syringe extract his blood, Philip made a decision. He would not let his team suffer this fate. He would not let humanity be condemned for the very thing that made them strong. He began to plan, his mind racing with possibilities. They had to escape to get back to Earth and warn their people. The galaxy stood on the brink of war, and only humanity could stop it. But first they had to survive. First they had to break free. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.